Session 32 of the Law of One, we have more sexual energy transfer information and some insights into Wanderers. Let's begin. Session 32 is not too long of a session, so hopefully I can cover it in this one video. If not, you'll probably see already that it says part 1. If it doesn't, then this is it. This is the whole session 32. We have information about sexual energy transfer still, since we talked about that in the last session. And we also have information about Wanderers and some insights into energy centers that I might make a longer reflection there, talking about what the energy centers are in terms of what they're talking about. It's probably one of the last questions, so we'll get there. And I don't think there's much introduction to the session other than to say that the first question is actually Don asking about Jim had a question and it had to do with Carla, so let's get into it. Don says, I have a little question I will throw in at this point from Jim. I will read it. The instrument's physical complex is now in the process of recovery from taking a chemical. She was ignorant of the opening that she was creating. How can each of the three of us present be more aware of how such openings may be created in our actions and thoughts? Is it possible that we could make such openings innocently as we question in certain areas during the sessions? And then, what can we do to protect ourselves from distorting influences in general? Is there any ritual or meditation that we use? Okay, so Jim was concerned about Carla. Remember, even though we've taken weeks to get into this point, remember that in just a couple of sessions back, actually a couple of days, because they were doing sometimes even 2 sessions a day, just a couple of weeks maybe, Carla had taken LSD, and that's the chemical that Jim's talking about here. So because of that, Jim wanted to know if there was anything that they could have done or could be doing that can create these openings for negative entities, or just be open. When you take any substance that alters your consciousness, you're creating sort of like an opening in your aura, if you will. So that happened to Carla. She was, say, vulnerable to possible attacks. She actually was attacked, as we discussed then. But she was, you know, pretty good at just being who she was. And we're going to get into that answer, which I think I wanted to include that this was in book 5 of the original books, and it was personal information, so you're not going to find it in the original books if you have them. Well, you may find it in the 5th book if you have all of them, but not in, say, book 2. So yeah, I just wanted to include it because Ross says a couple of things that I think are really important for us, even if we're not, obviously, in the position that Carla was at the time, but just, you know, general information. So that's what Jim's asking, you know, if there's anything, you know, that we could do that innocently may open ourselves to that vulnerability, and also if there is anything, you know, that they can do to protect themselves. So Ra's answer is actually pretty good when they say, although we are in sympathy with the great desire to be of service exemplified by this question, our answer is limited by the distortion of the way of Confucian. We shall say some general things which may be of service in this area. Firstly, when this instrument distorted its bodily complex towards low vital energy due to this occurrence, it was a recognizable substance which caused this. This was not a, shall we say, natural substance, nor was the mind-body-spirit complex enough aware of its distortion towards physical weakness. Natural ways of, shall we say, everyday existence in which the entity without the distortions caused by ingestion of strongly effective chemicals may be seen to be of an always appropriate nature. There are no mistakes, including the action of this instrument. Alright, so firstly, Carla didn't know, let's say, she didn't know she had low vital energies. So she didn't know she was susceptible to getting sick, because that's what eventually happened. So they also say something about the substance. It was a recognizable substance which caused this. That's the LSD. This was not a natural substance. Okay, we know that. enough aware of its distortion towards physical weakness. That's what I said. So the natural ways, when they say, and I think this is one of the cool parts, when they say the natural ways of everyday existence in which the entity without the distortions of caused by the ingestion of strongly effective chemicals, meaning that the everyday activities or natural ways of the person without the distortions caused by the chemical may be seen as always an appropriate nature, meaning that who you are and the way you are, it's always the appropriate nature or way. You know, there's no need to correct anything, basically. You know, what's done is done, and just, you know, the way you act is the way you act and how you are. So there's no specific step that can be taken, you know, in this regard. You just, you know, you are who you are, and that's, I think that sounds more in the way of you know, preserving who you are regardless of the experience that you've had, meaning that the experience cannot change or shouldn't have the inherent idea of making you change. It is you who discern, you know, what happens and how now you see the world. Especially when talking about psychedelics, there's no one way that if I say to you, you know, when you take psychedelics, after it you're gonna start acting this way or behave that way. You know, you in your own discernment, the ways, your natural ways, is, you know, an appropriate nature. So there are no mistakes, including the action of this instrument. You know, whatever she did, that was appropriate. They go on to say, secondly, the means of protection against any negative or debilitating influence for those upon the positive path was demonstrated by this instrument to a very great degree. Consider, if you will, the potentials that this particular occurrence had for negative influences to enter the instrument. This instrument thought upon the Creator in its solitude and in actions with other self, continually praised and gave thanksgiving to the Creator for the experiences it was having. Okay, so the means of protection for any negative or debilitating influence to those who are positive oriented, it was greatly demonstrated by Carla in the way that she acted or reacted to the whole experience. So they say, consider the potentials, you know, of this particular experience that had for negative influences to enter the instrument. When you are open, and this is the thing with psychedelics, when you are open to with an external substance, an exogenous substance like psychedelics, will open you to the influences of very much, you know, of the outside. And of course, there are light and dark forces, if you want to call them that way, positive or negatives. There are agendas and there are certain needs that these entities have. So when you're open to that, there is the potential to get obviously negatively influenced. If you're positive, then that's not so much, you know, what you want. And so, you know, they said that the shielding or the protecting of Carla was that she thought of the Creator in her solitude, in its solitude and in actions with other self. So the way she pretty much maneuvered the experience was, you know, thinking about the Creator and thinking about other selves, and continually praise and thanksgiving the Creator for the experience that it was having. So she was pretty much in bliss and having such a good time that she was so grateful, you know, of the Creator. And Carla was very positive. I mean, you can, when you listen to her talk, you can just see that she was just this adorable, you know, person. So in her experience, she was just being, you know, happy, you know, and giving thanksgiving to the Creator and so on. So that is the perfect shield, if we can call it that. So Ra finishes and says, this in turn allowed this particular entity to radiate to the other self such energies as became a catalyst for an opening and strengthening of the other self's ability to function in a more positively polarized state. Thus we see protection being very simple. Give thanksgiving for each moment. See the self and the other self as Creator. Open the heart. Always know the light and praise it. This is all the protection that is necessary. So, see, it's good that we're talking about psychedelics, LSD in particular, but also that we are talking about how we protect ourselves from those negative energies or negative influences. And I'm not clear if she was with somebody else. I'm pretty sure she was, because they're saying that she radiated this energies to the other person and served as a catalyst for the opening and strengthening of the other self's ability to function in a more positive way. So she kind of like, it's almost like healing in this way. You know, the word might, you know, sounds like we're talking about something else, but healing is just how you allow the other person to feel, you know, more aligned with themselves. So in this case, she functioned as a catalyst with her own energy to the other person. And then again, you know, the protection, or the way that we, honestly, I mean, this is just for us to apply in everyday interaction, is to see the self and the other self as creator. Of course, this is something that gets emphasized, and we need to get deeper into the philosophy of what that really means for us to know what that feels like, to feel, to know yourself as the creator and to see the creator in other selves. So they also say open the heart. Opening the heart just means to praise the loving nature of reality. Opening the heart is love being an acceptance of everything as a loving being, or just love in general. And they also say always know the light and praise it. Of course, we are on the positive path, so we want to see the light as they see it. Light being, of course, the wisdom, the information that we're getting. Praise it. And this is all the protection that is necessary. That's what they're saying. And you see, this is pretty cool to know, because when we have doubts into, you know, even on every day, we are under heavy negative influence all the time, because we allow that in our ignorance of who we are, right? We are in the path of knowing the self in third density. We are heavily influenced by the environment. And now the environment has also been conditioned for us to be, say, receptive of negative influencing. How? In our culture, in our traditions, in our way of thinking, the way we perceive ourselves in society. I mean, it gets really deep, but the fact remains that we are pretty susceptible to negative influences. And so with our thinking, we are calling those negative influences without, you know, us wanting to do it consciously. So subconsciously, we may be open to that. Psychedelics are a little bit more powerful in the sense that they can, it's like, you know, there's access to your consciousness to kind of play with it even more. But, you know, in general, like every day, I say the psychedelic experiences in every day, in every moment. You don't have to have exogenous substances. You can induce that by, you know, pure consciousness, if you will. So in the same way, we at this low level of understanding who we are, we're susceptible to it. So these guidelines are really, really important. But again, you know, I have to emphasize the importance of knowing the philosophy of the creator and the whole law of one way of seeing the creation, because that is what really pays off. You know, it's not just saying, okay, my protection today is just, I know I'm the creator and I see everything in the creator. That's a very intellectual way of seeing it. You don't want to say it. You don't even want to think about it. You want to feel it. That's the best way I can describe it, you know, without getting too poetic or too philosophical here. But that's the point. The point is that you don't think about it. You don't have to think about it to know it. You feel it. And because you feel it, you know it. So it's like an intuitive way of looking at reality. And of course, you know, for that, we need to get out of the ego, which is the lower energy centers, and move more into the heart. That's why they say open the heart. Well, when you open the heart, it's an inevitable, you know, reaction that you're going to have. So, all right, that's why I wanted to include this question. I thought it was pretty cool and really important, actually, for us who want some sort of guidelines into how to you know, be every day. And you can see that it's always reduced to the same ideas, you know, see yourself as the creator. We're coming out from the body into the mind, into the heart mind. And from there, we're taking a more holistic view of what this reality is without getting into the spiritual, but we'll talk about that in this session. So let's move on. 32.2, Don says, thank you very much. I will now continue with the material from day before yesterday. From day before yesterday. Okay. Our subject is how sexual polarity acts as a catalyst in evolution and how to best make use of this catalyst. Going back to that material, I will fill in a few gaps that we possibly don't understand at this point too well. Can you tell me the difference between orange and yellow ray activation? I am going to work up from red ray. Red ray. Okay, so Don's confusing me. Well, this is part of the re-listen version, so it's just exactly how Don said it. So I'm gonna read it as if it was Don. I'm going to work up from ray right on through the violets. See, I'm confused myself. and we covered red ray. So what's the difference between orange and yellow ray activation? All right, let me just explain what I just read there. So Don just wants to know, they cover already red ray, so he's gonna work his way red ray right on through the violet. So yeah, I should probably filter this question so they make more sense, you know, in the way they were written. Like I said, I'm using, for those who don't know, I'm using the re-listen version, which is, you know, how Don was talking and everything was transcribed exactly as it was. So again, Don wants to know from the red ray, since they covered it already, what's the difference between orange and yellow ray activation in this sense. We're talking about sexual energy transfer, of course, so let's keep that in mind. So Ra says, alright, less confusing now. The orange ray is that influence of vibratory pattern wherein the mind, body, spirit expresses its power on an individual basis. Thus, power over individuals may be seen to be orange ray. This ray has been quite intense among your peoples on an individual basis. You may see in this ray the treating of other selves as non-entities, slaves, or chattel, thus giving other selves no status, whatever. Okay, so we're describing what we know already as the orange ray. The orange ray and what's called the identity ray, or, you know, your identity, is based on the one-on-one interaction, one-on-one with other selves. So the blockage, or allowing, you know, the energy to flow, has to do with that interaction. And that's why they say power over individuals may be seen as orange ray, because when we deal with other selves and we want to have power over them, that signifies a sort of blockage of the energy there, that it's not seeing the other self as another self. And you know, this is that is like the graduation of orange ray in consciousness, of course. This is exactly what happens in second density, which is directly related to the second chakra, orange ray. Animals and plants, they discern themselves from the pack, from the forest, from everything, from nature, as an individual. So that is the graduation, seeing yourself as an individual, accepting who you are, having an identity. And so it expresses as, you know, power over others in the negative sense. So they say this ray has been quite intense among your peoples on an individual basis. No wonder why. You may see in this ray the treating of other selves as non-entities, slaves, chattel, thus giving other selves no status, whatever. So that is the orange ray blockage, or issues that we have. Activation has to do with not doing that. Don't see other people as your property. Don't see other people as you know, you have power or you can control them. Any sort of thought that you can have towards that is manifesting a blockage in your orange ray, which means that the energy is not flowing. So you don't want to do that. You just want the energy to flow to yellow ray. And now we're going to get into the next part where Ra explains the yellow ray. Ra continues, the yellow ray is a focal and very powerful ray and concerns the entity in relation to, shall we say, groups, societies, or large numbers of mind-body-spirit complexes. This orange, we correct ourselves. This yellow ray vibration is at the heart of bellicose actions in which one group of entities feel the necessity and right of dominating other groups of entities and bending their wills to the wills of the masters. The negative path, as you would call it, uses a combination of the yellow ray and the orange ray in its polarization patterns. Okay, so Again, now that we move from the orange ray, from an individual basis, a one-on-one, we now get into our place. Now that we have an identity, whether that be, you know, a knowing entity that is, it's allowing, you know, it's seeing the other self as another self and going into yellow ray, or further empowering that power over other, but now over others. So instead of, you know, say that the positive path sees in the orange ray the other self as somebody like them, you know, another self, and moves into yellow ray to continue that in the society, in a group setting, seeing, you know, the group as a whole. And this is why certain third density civilizations can actually create a social memory complex, because that possibility is there. We can see each other, and I mean, we have that ability. If you ask anybody in the streets, are we one? They will say, yes, we're all one. But this and that, you know, there's a lot of reasons why, you know, people have trouble, you know, seeing that. So again, you know, when we get into the yellow ray, there is the possibility of continue to see other selves as self, and allowing that to empower the group as a community. Let's say, you know, I don't want to call it a tribal setting, but say, you know, it's the word that comes to mind to me, you know, as a Ubuntu, you know, in the African word, that is, you know, everybody working together, as opposed to the negative path, which in orange ray sees the other self as a slave or somebody to be controlled and manipulated. And then in the yellow ray setting, then we go into domination of groups. It's no longer a domination of one-on-one, it's a domination. That's why they say it's of bellicose nature, because we're bringing, you know, this belligerent behavior into our consciousness to control and have power over other people. You want examples? Just look outside. We have countries, we have states, we have powers, we have sects, we have all kinds of, you know, groups that have this mentality. I mean, even associating yourself with your country, with your race, with anything that is an identity that makes you feel sort of identified. And I'm sorry to say this, because a lot of people would feel that, you know, I'm attempting against their identity, but you know what? I am. Because you don't have an identity. You are not, if you're in this path, you should know that you have no identity. Unless, you know, and it's fine, you know, you want to identify yourself with the body, you know, with a separate self. That's okay. There is a negative path for that. For the people who are positively oriented, the identity of self must dissolve. Must be, and I'm not saying like you're not going to have more identity, you're going to be, you know, like a blank slate walking around and, you know, in the streets. I'm talking about not associating yourself with any sort of identity you may have, that you may have been given labels and so on. So that is the yellow ray activation in sense of negative. You identify with a group, with a country, with a circle or a sect, like I said. Any sort of you believing that your group is the best, you know, vote for my party because we are the best. We are, you know, the most advanced civilization. We are. No, we are all one, you know, if you want to advance. So that is the negative path, like I said. And that's it. You know, it's just the idea of dominating others. And this is not also, I mean, this goes into your mind. Everything is basically in the mind. You don't have to dominate others physically. If you feel like you are dominating other people, and you may be wrong, you're just deluding yourself that you're following a negative path because you are wanting to be that, and your actions mean nothing. Your mind means everything. So important to mention that. All right, Ra continues. It says the usual nature of sexual interaction, if one is yellow or orange in primary vibratory patterns, is one of blockage and then insatiable hunger due to the blockage. When there are two selves vibrating in this area, the potential for polarization through the sexual interaction is begun. One entity experiencing the pleasure of humiliation and slavery or bondage, the other experiencing the pleasure of mastery and control over another entity. In this way, a sexual energy transfer of a negative polarity is experienced. These rays, used in a dedicated fashion, will bring about a contact with intelligent infinity. All right, so now they're talking about the activation and potentiating or energizing of these two primal energy centers, or this basic energy centers, orange and yellow. They're strictly talking about negative polarity, or the negative sense of sexual energy transfer. So if you want to polarize, or if you don't want to polarize, let's put it that way, then the way you behave with your sexual partner is not in the possessive way, in the dominating way, or like they said, you know, there is pleasure in humiliation and slavery or bondage, where you and this is pretty dominant in our sexual culture now. I'm not sure when it started, probably has been for a long time. I think now that we have more media and information out, it's become like something more prevalent, I guess, accessible. I don't know the history of this, but we know that in our culture this is very predominant. The idea of not only owning somebody, that I think it's even the most vanilla way of being, you know, negative. Just feeling that you own somebody, that you are my wife, you are my husband, you are my boyfriend, you are my. You know, you are not mine. You are not. I don't own you, unless, you know, you want to polarize negatively. But also in the sexual interaction, where there is, you know, the pleasure of humiliating somebody, or controlling somebody, having that bondage, that controlling and empowering experience over another person. And likewise, for the person that wants to be, you know, controlled, that wants to be humiliated or become the slave. They'll talk more about this in this session, but this is the sexual energy transfer of a negative polarity. And they say these rays, used in a dedicated fashion, will bring about contact with intelligent infinity, because that is the path of the negative entity. The negative entity just empowers these two rays, and by careful manipulation of these two rays with other selves, then they can contact intelligent infinity by skipping, in essence, the heart and going straight into indigo. I believe they make contact with, or they make use of blue ray just to make contact with indigo, and from there they contact intelligent infinity. That's how they polarize, so they can be harvested and ascend through the densities of consciousness. So that's it. You know, we'll get more into this, but that's a good preface to the negative polarization through sexual energy transfer means. So 32.3. Let's go. So Don says, from the material that you transmitted February 17th, you stated, in third ray, there are two possibilities. Firstly, if both vibrate in third ray, there will be a mutually strengthening energy transfer. What color is third ray in this material? This is a correction from a couple of sessions ago that we actually covered. So Ra says the ray we were speaking of in that material should be properly the green ray or fourth ray. I don't know if there's anything to add here. They say in third ray there are two possibilities. If both are in third, mutually strengthened. Okay, yeah, so that's just a correction. Then Don says, so I should change that third to fourth. Ra says, this is correct. Please continue to scan for errors having to do with numberings, as you call them, as this concept is foreign to us and we must translate, if you will, when using numbers. This is an ongoing weakness of this contact due to the difference between your ways, our ways, and yours. Your aid is appreciated. So yeah, Ra has a different way of perceiving reality. They don't see, say, in quantized fashions. They see more sort of like the experience, or the quality of the experience in itself, and it's almost like an intensity, if you will. That's how far as I understand it. So they don't have numberings. Numberings and namings is actually something of third density, or us here in planet Earth. We're of course obsessed with that, with naming and numbering. So that's why you see sometimes they have issues, you know, using numbers, something that comes to mind is always that they used to say, I think 3,300 years ago, and it was corrected to 23 or 26, something like that. They always confuse that time for some reason. So there's a running joke in the community, you know, students in Law of One, or I don't know if it was Jim who said it, or maybe Toby Willock, I'm not sure, one of them, but they said that, you know, Ra has issues counting over 1 or above 1, so you can see why. So anything over 2, it's just like, or over 1, it's just like, we don't know. All right, so now we can go into 32.5, where Don says, okay, thank you. I believe that for the time being we've amply covered green ray, so I'm going to skip over green ray and go to blue ray. Could you tell me the difference that occurs between green and blue, with the emphasis on blue ray? Ra says, with the green ray transfer of energy, you now come to the great turning point sexually, as well as in each other mode of experience. The green ray may then be turned outward, the entity then giving rather than receiving. The first giving beyond green ray is the giving of acceptance or freedom, thus allowing the recipient of blue ray energy transfer the opportunity for a feeling of being accepted, thus freeing that other self to express itself to the giver of this ray. So something that may sound confusing here, and it certainly was for me once I got it a little bit more thoroughly, and Scott Mandelker's actually material helped me a lot with this. Links in the description for Scott Mandelker's, who did all 106 sessions and continues to do other stuff, in the description box if you're really interested. He goes really deep into all of this stuff. The way they responded here, we're talking about beyond blue or green, because they say we have to understand a little bit more the dynamics of energy and energy transfer here, or how the energy centers work together. When we get into green ray activation, and this is something, again, that to me, it's still kind of processing how the green ray is more a receptor rather than a emitter. Green ray, your heart, is more a receptor of love. I can see it as once you activate your green ray and you start feeling unconditional love, you're absorbing that from the environment. The experience is feeding you love, and there is no radiation there. There is just the receiving of that love. So the first transfer, as they say, and let's read it again. With the green ray transfer of energy, you now come to the great turning point sexually, because that is the point where we can actually transfer energy. And as well as in each other mode of experience, of course. In any other mode of experience, we know that there's a turning point in how we perceive consciousness from our different energy centers, or densities even. Because when we talk about, let's start with the first chakra, or first energy center. That one is, it's kind of like it's a turning point. One is a turning point because it's becoming, from the formless, it's becoming form. So that is a very impactful, say, threshold that we have to cross as entities to know that there is, you know, a form out of random intelligent energy. So that is first density, and our own self. We have to first recognize that we are alive, that we exist, and that is a big realization. Okay, so that one is, it's like I said, a turning point. Then second density, or second energy center, is more introspective. So it's more, okay, now that I exist, who am I? I have an identity. I am this. I have a body. I have, you know, interactions with the environment. That is second density. That is our second orange ray identity, our consciousness there. But then in third density, moving out of second density or third ray, we now get to another third turning point, because now we are understanding our place in society, within the culture, within everyone else. We have to see other selves. So, and this is the point where we are right now in third density. Our experience is getting into the realization. It's a very difficult, that requires a lot of work to transcend from third to fourth. That's where we are right now. You can see the struggle. It's almost the same as in first. You are becoming something more out of second density, which again, you know, first density comes kind of out to understand what's happening. Second density is going in. Third density, it's going out again, and to see, you know, what are we as a society, as a group, as a self, as other selves. And then when we reach fourth density, and this, you know, you can start related with the energy centers, of course, and consciousness and how we perceive reality. Then fourth density, it's again introspective. It's almost like you're going into, you know, this receiving of love, and you're starting to see, oh, okay, similar to second, to Orange Ray. In Orange Ray, you know, you first said in first density, I am something, and then, okay, or I have a form, and now I need to identify myself. That's what's happening in Green Ray. It's happening, you know, at the mind level. Who am I? What is this? You know, and now you're seeing it from a loving perspective. So now you can see why fifth is another turning point, because that is the point where you are realizing that you're not only a mind, but you're also a spirit. So there's another turning point there. I know this sounds confusing, but it's almost like a protocol of how we advance in consciousness. So again, you know, with that in mind, when they said with the Green Ray transfer of energy, now you come to the great turning point sexually, as well as in each other mode of experience, like I explained. But in sexual, there is the first time that we as positive beings can actually share our energy. Okay, so this is the energy transfer. So they say the Green Ray may then be turned outward. The Green Ray that is activated, that is receiving, now can turn its way outward, and it's going through the blue chakra, your throat chakra, blue ray. The entity then giving rather than receiving. See, you're receiving love, you're giving love. But you're receiving love from everywhere. You're like plugged into the loving matrix. So as you are receiving all the time, you know, in Green Ray, from Blue Ray, you can give rather than receive. The first giving beyond Green Ray is the giving of acceptance or freedom. That is Blue Ray. Thus allowing the recipient of the Blue Ray energy transfer, see, Blue Ray energy transfer is the one that is beyond Green Ray. The opportunity for a feeling of being accepted, thus freeing that other self to express itself to the giver of this ray. You can also see this as the acceptance that's happening here is kind of like, in second ray, and in third ray, you feel accepted by society, because you first become a self, an identified, you know, body self, and then you know that you belong to other bodies, other selves. And you become, you know, this one being of one culture, a social memory complex. You can become that with everybody else. So in the same way, we're having an acceptance now, but not on the body, but in the mind. Because remember, body is associated with orange and yellow, red as well, but mostly orange and yellow, the identity, right? And then the mind is associated with the heart and throat chakra. That's the mind. And then spirit is associated with indigo and violet. So a third eye and our crown chakra. So being accepted is being accepted as a mind person, a mind body in that sense. Not just the mind body in the way they explain it in the Law of One or the raw material, which is just the body, you know, without the spirit, but at a mind level, in the mind consciousness, you are not just a body, like in Orange Ray. Now at Green Ray, you are a mind, and that mind is being accepted. So freely accepted. So that's basically what they're saying here. Thus freeing that other self to express itself to the giver of this ray. You allow that with trust. You know, you exude that trust to the other person. So that is the Blue Ray energy transfer that occurs. All right, let's go into more of the answer that Ra has. And Ra says, it will be noted that once Green Ray energy transfer has been achieved by two mind-body spirits, In mating, the further rays are available without both entities having the necessity to progress equally. Thus, a blue ray vibrating entity or indigo ray vibrating entity whose other ray vibrations are clear may share that energy with the green ray other self, thus acting as catalyst for the continued learned teaching of the other self until other self reaches green ray. Such energy transfer through the rays is not possible. Very good. Okay, so one thing that they're noting here is that once green ray energy transfer has been achieved, so you activate your green ray and you are able to transfer that through the blue ray, then in mating, we're talking about sexual energy transfer still, the further rays are available without both entities having the necessity to progress equally. Meaning that, as they say, you know, at the bottom, they say, until the other self reaches green ray, such energy transfer through the rays is not possible, because you need to have no blockages or very little blockages in your lower energy centers to be able to be green ray activated. So that is a prerequisite, let's call it. So if I am green ray or I am I don't know, I have blockages and I'm not green ray yet, and I have an attempt of sexual energy transfer with a green ray, it's not gonna happen. But if I am green ray and I have sexual energy transfer, or attempt to have it with a indigo, you know, individual that may have this this possibility, I don't need to have the prerequisite of being indigo. By being green ray, I am already receptive. See, the heart is open, the heart is ready to receive unconditional love, and this energy transfer that comes from any entity who is blue ray or indigo ray. So that energy transfer will happen regardless if I am green ray or blue ray or indigo ray. So probably see it just in colors, you know, better when you see that, you know, the higher somebody is, the more they can give to the other one that has to be at least green ray. So before that, there's no possibility of transfers to occur. Thus, a blue ray vibrating entity or indigo ray entity whose other ray vibrations are clear may share that energy with the green ray other self. That's it. Thus, acting as catalyst. That's important because the higher person, let's say, higher consciousness person, can actually serve as a catalyst for the other one to grow, to feel more accepted, to feel more sacramental, or one with the Creator, and seeing the self as the Creator. That's the ultimate lesson in 5th to 6th energy centers. So let's go on. Next question is Don saying, my next question had to do with indigo ray. Is there any difference between indigo and blue ray energy transfer? Ron says, the indigo ray is the ray of, shall we say, awareness of the Creator itself. Thus, one whose indigo ray vibrations have been activated can offer the energy transfer of Creator to Creator. This is the beginning of the sacramental nature of what you call your bisexual reproductive act. It is unique in bearing the wholeness, the unity of its offering to other self. So, indigo ray, again, you know, it's the awareness of the self as the Creator, like I just said, not even a minute ago. That is indigo ray. So the difference between blue ray, I believe that was the question, right? Difference between indigo and blue ray is that the indigo ray already sees itself as the Creator. Thus, one whose indigo ray vibrations have been activated can offer the energy transfer of Creator to Creator. So again, you know, in the example of, say, you know, I receive indigo ray energy from a higher consciousness person, then I can see myself more as the Creator. It incentivizes that. It creates catalysts for me to see myself as the Creator. This happens in a subtle way. It's not like at least not that I know, but this can happen as your perception of the Creator in a subtle way. It doesn't have to be, you know, a mystical experience, or it could be, I don't know. So this is the beginning of the sacramental nature of what we call this the bisexual reproductive act. Sacramental nature. This is the beginning of sacramental nature, meaning that violet ray is the sacramental experience. Once people achieve that type of energy transfer, then that is sacramental in the way of the method of transferring energy in the sexual ways. So it is unique in bearing the allness, the wholeness, the unity in its offering to other self. So it's offering, you know, that catalyst again of oneness, of allness, of just everything that is. And I would love to know what that feels. I don't know if that I've ever felt it, but that is just how it is, you know, and that is the difference between blue ray and indigo ray. I know they hinted something between violet ray, and I think Don is going to say something. So Don says, and then finally the violet ray. What is the difference between violet ray and the others? Ra says, the violet ray, just as the red ray, is constant in the sexual experience. Its experience by other self may be distorted or completely ignored, or not apprehended by other self. However, the violet ray, being the sum of substance of the mind-body-spirit complex, surrounds and informs any action by a mind-body-spirit complex. So, just like in red ray, we have the randomness of sexual energy transfer, meaning the reproductive outcome, if the egg is fertilized or not. Violet ray, it's similar in that way. Red and violet are very similar in their configurations in terms of what we can do with them, or what happens to them. And you know, they're almost like the two ends of a line. The line gets distorted, but the two ends are fixed, if you will, and they only vary in terms of the vibration that is happening in the line. So we are the line, you know, those two are, you know, they're just points. The final points are the two extremes of this one line. Word extreme is not really well used here, but you get the point. And so they say, okay, so it's constant in the sexual experience, just like, you know, red ray. Its experience by other self may be distorted or completely ignored, or not apprehended by other self. That's just how it is. You know, that energy is there for it to be transferred or not. That depends on the other self, and of course the person that, you know, is tapping into that intelligent infinity. So, however, the violet ray being the sum and substance of the mind-body-spirit complex, this means that the violet ray simply is and varies in its color and its brightness by the distortions that we have in the other energy centers. Surrounds and informs any action by a mind-body-spirit complex. So that's basically it. But the point, and I'll just emphasize here because Ra didn't mention it, is that the sacramental nature of everything comes from that. It's a tapping. You know, that's why indigo ray is it's the tunnel, the portal to intelligent infinity, because the person who is vibrating an indigo ray may tap into intelligent infinity for the sacramental nature of the sexual experience, thus having that transfer allowed to the other person, if the other person is of course receptive, which is of course, you know, green ray or heart needs to be open for that, and that's it. So I believe we're going to leave it until here because we already have almost an hour, and I'm not going to be able to cover this unless I get really far off the hour, and I don't want to do that. So we're going to leave this as part 1, and part 2 is going to deal more about wonders. There's a little bit more talk about sexual energy transfer. I believe there's 1 or 2 more questions about it, and then we'll get into wonders. In fact, you know what, as I'm saying this, let's read, because we can cover this last part on sexual energy transfer on the next question, and then we can move on to wonders specifically in the next video, as opposed to having just 1 more question. I thought there were more questions about sexual energy transfer, but this is not, it's not so. So, all right, bonus question on the fly. So we have Don saying, do the energy transfers of this nature occur in 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th density? I mean, all the rays? It's a really good question. Whew, all right, thankfully we have some more time. So Ra says, the rays as you understand them have such a different meaning in the next density and the next and so forth that we must answer your query in the negative. Energy transfers only take place in 4th, 5th, and 6th densities. These are still of what you would call a polarized nature. However, Due to the ability of these densities to see the harmonies between individuals, these entities choose those mates which are harmonious, thus allowing constant transfer of energy and the propagation of the body complexes which each density uses. Okay, so perception is key. Naturally, we tend to humanize how we perceive higher densities of consciousness. Now, in the way we are transferring our energy here on Earth as humans, it's not so in higher densities, and that's why Ra says that they need to answer in the negative, because the way we understand them, they have a different meaning in other densities. Now, see that we are, you can see this. This is a really good example just to visualize that here in planet Earth we have we are working with the first three energies, or at least that's the densities that we're seeing. We can see second density, we can see first density, and we are third density. However, we cannot see fourth density. We don't have the attunement to see fourth density. That means that we are in the dense, probably dense is not a good word, but the more coagulated energy, intelligent energy reality that we have in the creation, which is, first, second, and third. That is the physical as we know it. That's why we associate our energy centers with the body from the red through the yellow. That's our body. Then we have the mind. The mind is the heart and the throat. The heart-mind is the complex that is seen in fourth and fifth density. And then in sixth density and seventh, we get into the spiritual realm, which is, more in tune with intelligent infinity. You can see that, once as humans, we go into our third eye, and that's how we contact intelligent infinity. Now, why I'm saying this is because in other densities, we don't see ourselves as bodies that much, even though we do have a body. But we don't have a body. So our energy transfers do not have to go, and this is just my speculation. Bear this in mind, speculating Gabo here. We're talking about the transfers occur, like they say. They say energy transfers only take place in fourth, fifth, and sixth densities. Energy transfers. These are still of what you would call a polarized nature, meaning that there is some sort of polarized, perception of the self, because there's still some sort of identity. And as we see others, we also see beyond the veil. There is no veil, so we can also see the harmonies between us and others. We don't have to go through this process of guessing who the person is, what your mind is. Your mind is pretty much clear and crystalline in fourth density, so I can see who you are. Much like I can see your body here, I can see your mind in fourth density and fifth density. So we can. It's almost like, just like you say. Oh, sorry, it's probably a terrible example, but when arranged marriages happen, and the groom has no idea who the bride is, and then all of a sudden it's revealed to him, depending on its preferences. He might see it as something that is good or bad. So that is what happens to us in this world when we meet somebody and we say, I'm super attracted to you, but then the mind is something that we need to find out what's happening. Now, that doesn't happen in fourth density or fifth density. That's crystalline to us. We can see that mind. Much like in here, unless it's an arranged marriage, we can meet the other person and physically say, all right, I'm attracted to you, but I still have to go through the process of knowing who you are mentally, which sometimes doesn't work that well. So that's what they're saying with the harmonies between individuals. These entities choose those mates which are harmonious. So it's almost like here we choose the mates that we physically are attracted to. Because we can see it. Over there we can see their minds, thus allowing constant transfer of energy and the propagation. So the transfer of energy is happening already because of this. We don't have to, go through the veiling process and, going through this faith and willpower that we need, not willpower, but will and faith to work our way into relationships. That's happening already there. So that I love how they say, constant transfer of energy and the propagation of the body complexes which each density uses, which is reproduction basically. So there is reproduction there. There is a more subtle understanding of transfers in this way. And that is the answer that Ra has. There's a little bit more they're going to answer here. I hope I covered this well enough, because I think it's really helpful to know that we are living in a reality which experiences the body complex. This is, you know, the reality that we're living with all its beauty. In other densities, that's not so. We see beyond that. We are much more aware. Our consciousness is more expanded, and so on. So, all right, let's finish up with the last part of Ra answering this, where they say, the process is different in the 5th and 6th density than you may understand it. However, it is in these cases still based on polarity. In the 7th density, there is not this particular energy exchange at it, as it is unnecessary to recycle body complexes. Of course, for let's go from the beginning. The process is different in the 5th and 6th density. You see, 5th and 6th density has a deeper understanding than 4th density, and a different view on others, or the propagation of body complexes. There's a different reason there. And this has to do, once again, with our perception, because of our consciousness, how it works there. And then they say, you know, in this case it's still based on polarity, because we're still in the polarized nature of the creation, which it's still, you know, in 6th density. Up until 7th density. And 7th density is where everything just dissolves. There's no polarity, there's no separation, there's no self other than the creator. And there is no need to have, you know, body complexes, because there is no need to create a configuration of the self for it to have an experience. It's a very important part too. This may sound very bizarre, but experience is only created for the separate identity to know itself as the creator. I know how that sounds. It sounds like a tongue twister, but that is how it is. Experiences are created by the individualized point of consciousness to know itself as the creator. Once you are known as the creator, there's no need to create more experiences, thus you have no need for bodies, no need to configure anything in what may be called space-time analogs in higher densities of consciousness. So you don't have to do that. In 7th density, you are mixed already with the oneness of, there is no separation, there's no, you know, me and you, no social memory complex, everything dissolves. And this is why the higher self is the crucial part in knowing, in helping us in the lower densities, because the higher self comes from 7th density before dissolving to the nothing. And the or the nothing or the everything, depending on how you want to see it. So that higher self comes down to 6th density, and it's a gift to the late 6th density, so it can help in the guiding of the mind-body-spirit complex as it goes through the densities of consciousness. So that's it. I think we finished this pretty well. There's much more that I can talk about, you know, the process of energy transfer in terms of the other densities, but I'll leave it at this. We have almost an hour, and it's time for conclusions. So we've gotten a good tour. I don't think we have more sexual energy transfer for the next couple of sessions. I may be wrong. There might be another question here and there, but now it gets more mixed, as we have seen. But we can see that the prevalent in the implicit lesson into all of this is to have an experience as the creator, in knowing yourself as the creator. Sexual energy transfer is not obviously needed. This is why monks achieve a really high level of consciousness with celibacy, because it's not needed. It is a mechanism that exists, but certainly not necessary. But the purpose of all of this is, again, to know yourself as the creator. That is, if you analyze sexual energy transfer at this point, you can see that the bodily energy centers that are associated with, you know, form, with identity in groups, and then finally reaching the heart. those energy centers are not useless, but they are only a channel, a shuttle for the energy that is coming through you to reach the heart and know it's activated and know that everything is, it's love. Perceive love. Opening the heart means to receive that love from everything. Perceiving the creation as a loving creation, that is you. Because from third density, you already know that everything is the self. This is the great lesson of third density, to know and feel that you are, everybody is you. So in fourth density, or in heart chakra, now we have that energy. And what is it used for? It's used to express acceptance of the other self, to say, hey, you know what, you are me, so I will give you everything, because the more I give you, the more I give myself. You know, it's a huge realization. You know, it's a fun realization, actually. You know, to know that when I give you something, I'm giving myself something. You know, it's it's fun. It's like a child's game. You know, it's really fascinating. You know, so that is the true expression. That's why all the energy was channeled to the heart, so it can perceive and receive this love from everywhere. Like I said, you know, you're plugged into the loving matrix, and you have infinite energy. So what are you going to do with that energy? You know, exude it, expel it, you know, give it to others. And that's why Blu-ray, by doing this and accepting other people as the self, and, you know, with honest, free giving, you know, love, then you do the work to what? To see the self as the creator fully, to open the third eye and see, again, accept and see the self as the creator, acceptance of the self. Just like, see the parallel here between second, fourth, and sixth is that you are accepting the self even more. In the first one, you're accepting the form that you are, the body that you are, and you just know, okay, I'm a body, that's fine, you know, there's more to this. Then in fourth, you accept yourself as a loving being of everything. You know, everything is love. So now you know more about yourself. And in sixth density, or in sixth indigo ray, you see yourself, you accept yourself as the creator. You know you're the creator, but you're not accepting it yet. When you get to indigo ray, you accept yourself as the creator. So that is the purpose of it. Now, sexual energy transfer definitely provides that. It allows for that, but it's not the only way. We can do it at every single second. And that's why in Zen Buddhism, Satori is something that is achieved in a fraction of a second. Could be now. It's potentially always there. So it is you to wake up and see yourself as everything. You know, you stop seeing yourself as a separate identity, and you reach Satori in that way. So you don't have to, you know, go through the process of sexual energy transfer. It's just one of the ways. And you know, like, I think it was in session 30 or 31 where Don asked, and Ra said, this is one appropriate way of the creator knowing itself. Well, that's basically what we're talking about. The creator knowing itself. You are the creator, but you know yourself as a creator. That's the big question. The question, you know, that follows is then why not if you don't? And that's where, you know, we need to really ponder. So that's all I got for this session, or this first part. I'm definitely going to cover the rest in part 2. Thank you so much for watching. I have a community that is mostly Spanish in a Facebook group called Gaia Despierta. So if you want to reach that, go in the description, and we always talk about this stuff. We have a lot of bilingual people there, so if you want to post things in English, you're always welcome to. And that is it. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Like, do the whole thing so YouTube promotes more these videos, because if you like them, then other people might like them too. So that's it. That's all I got. Part 2, session 32 next week. Thank you.